When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite, looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Within the gaming world, there are your general gamers, but then there are those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming. If you're one of those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming, we certainly got the place to send you. Scorpion Lair Games. That's right, Scorpion Lair Games is the creators of the true crime hit Killers, the card game. Let's not forget they also have Killers Clothing Company, the profiler game, and things like the 5-Minute Murder channel on YouTube. And we certainly can't forget the new book that is certainly a hit, Beyond the Headliners, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. Make sure you visit Jeff and the Scorpion Lair Games on Facebook and everywhere today.
My name is Richie Steamboat, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. And I would like to think 2 of the biggest kids around are on this Zoom call. But this next gentleman is a generational wrestler. And even if he didn't try his hand at the business, he is a generational talent in many ways. But obviously, many people know his father for a lot of the legendary matches he's had in Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. But right now, we have the honor of talking with a talent in his own right, Mr. Richie Steamboat. Richie, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
I can't complain. Nobody will listen anyway. But, I'll bounce around a little bit. But I'm curious to know, because obviously we'll get there in more detail. How are you feeling overall? Because obviously you had I would say, career-ending injury with your back. So at this point in 2025, how are you feeling overall physically?
Yeah, I do everything on like on a 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, one being the best. I probably feel I'm probably like a 5 or a 6 right now. I have constant back pain.
Yeah.
It's something that I've lived with for a long time, and I think I can share. A lot of people can relate to that for lots of
Hmm.
different reasons, whether you're doing construction or you're a pipe fitter or you're doing whatever other kind of jobs. You have an accident, something happens, and you injure your back. So it's something that I've had to learn to manage on my own, and everybody's body's a little different, so we all have to kind of figure out what works for us and doing a lot of stretching and therapy helped me a lot. I've had a lot of haven't had any surgeries. I had a couple of options to get some fusions, but I declined. I was 24 at the time, and I really, I just didn't feel comfortable doing it. I really wanted to wait and see if medicine got better, and I could maybe do it down the road. But I've been able to avoid any surgeries. I've had 7 facet joint nerve blocks in my lower back, so my lower back is pretty numb. But I've made the best of it, and I'm grateful for everything that I've been able to do. Started amateur wrestling when I was 5. Got to grow up with all these heroes of mine, and it's been an amazing ride, and I'm grateful again to be here and to have that opportunity and work with some of the amazing entertainers that I've been able to work with and athletes I've met along the way, and just want to share my story.
Right on. And before we get into sharing said story, uh, like I said, obviously we're taping this over Zoom, and you have a poster to your right behind you of some guy we recently lost in Hogan, and I have the Sports Illustrated signed by him as well up here.
Very good.
Yeah, so how did you take that? Because obviously you had crossed paths with the Hulkster throughout the years, and I heard that you recently saw him in March. So,
Yeah, I grew up as a kid backstage. I was
yeah.
great. Honestly, it was a cool experience, and I've known Hulk since I was born. Really, we used to go on family vacations with them and the Flair family. We'd kind of box ourselves in a little area and keep others away, so we could kind of have some family time and stuff. So I've known him my whole life. It was a huge shock to me for that to happen, and everyone knows, Hulkster's had a lot of surgeries. He had some knee,
That's why I was bringing it up, but go ahead.
he's had a lot of surgery. He's had both knees replaced, both hips replaced. It had been a few years since I had seen him, and I went down in March down to Clearwater, and got to hang out with him a little bit and brought some items down to have him sign. Um, and he looked good to me. Everything was looking good. Now, a lot of these guys at this point, as they age, my dad's similar. They start having trouble getting around. Whether that's
Yeah.
walking upstairs or going downstairs or just walking, through the door. So he had a cane that he was using,
Yeah.
but just kind of for support to kind of get him around. He was in good spirits. And man, it was a shock. I did not expect. I did not expect it, and I'm just, I guess, lucky to be able to have the opportunity to spend a little more time with him. That was God putting me there, and putting us together. So I'm grateful for the time that we got to spend together again. Got to talk about some old stories. He remembers me mostly. All his stories are from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And that's where his memories come from. So we passed some stuff back and forth and had a good time. So it was cool, but definitely a shock and a huge loss to the wrestling world. Hulk Hogan is one of those guys that helped propel the business into what it is today. And without his dedication, hard work, and all the suffering he had to go through to get to where he was, I'm grateful for that. So it was a sad day for me.
Yeah. And we just recently released a tribute show to him, and we focused on the career stuff, obviously. like you said, everything and the work that goes into it. Because we weren't going to beat dead horses with, some of the other stuff. And, because no, I think you're smart enough to know, like me, nobody was perfect. And that's not what we're judging him on and idolizing, why people idolized him and all that stuff. But, we rest in peace, or I guess I've been hearing lately, rest in power, brother. That's cool that you had that kind of experience with him, though. But in general, you just mentioned it. You grew up in the locker rooms and such. And when I was a kid, I actually remember seeing you. It was on VHS, though, at WrestleMania 4 when your dad brought you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when Richie says he literally grew up in locker rooms, he's not fibbing here. So what was that like growing up in the locker rooms? And you'd see guys like a Randy Savage, a Hulkster, an Andre, Flair. You go down a list which is mind-boggling on its own. But what was that like growing up with a lot of these guys around?
A lot of people ask me, what was it like growing up with Ricky Steamboat as my dad?
That was your normal, though.
What's that?
That was your normal, though.
Yeah, right. And that's what I was about to say. It's like, he's my dad. Like you have a dad, hopefully everyone gets to have a dad and experience that. We have good times and bad. We disagree. We get along. It's all of that normal stuff. And to expand on that and to talk about the other guys, I saw all the respect that my dad received when we'd go out to dinner and someone would ask for an autograph, or I would see some of the other entertainers, some of the other guys walk into the building and getting stopped, and fans looking so excited to see them and just so genuinely happy to be there. And the time that they took to conversate and talk to those fans and do that. I mean, I knew as a kid, I knew it was special, but I didn't really get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I knew that this was something that not everybody got to do, but I didn't really understand it fully until I became a little older. If I was 16, 17 years old, and I really kind of looking back at all these wonderful pictures and stories that I remember and things that have happened. It's just it was really cool. I really love all those guys. It was a great time. I looked at them as heroes. They were my heroes growing up. I didn't watch cartoons or read comic books, so
Yeah.
it was cool.
And you bring up an interesting point that, like, if dad was home and whatnot, and you would go to a movie or you go to dinner or whatever as a family, et cetera, and somebody might ask for an autograph or a picture or whatever the case might be. How was that for you? Not, like you said, fully understanding why people would approach your dad respectfully, hopefully, about that, and where it'd be like, hey, this is time with my dad because he's usually out on the road working. You know what I mean? So that time home with him was probably a little more special.
It was, and it was just the norm. It
Yeah.
was just kind of the everyday thing that took place, whether we were going to a gas station or we're going to a nice dinner. It was just something that happened everywhere we went. So it just kind of became part of the daily routine. And as a younger kid, I didn't, it was a little challenging for me to really wrap my brain around the whole thing. But as I grew, it was super special to see how much people respected and appreciated my dad, and it it drove me to really want to be a professional wrestler and want to be viewed in that light as get his approval and have his blessing behind it, if you will.
Yeah.
So
So is that why you started out with the amateur wrestling and stuff?
I yes, I mean I started out amateur wrestling when I was 5.
Yeah.
So I was 5 years old. I was one thing about the Steamboat family. Everything that we do is going to be 125, 130%. We're going to do the max. So
Yeah.
at 5 years old, I'm making weight, trying sucking on ice cubes, and trying to cut my weight a few pounds to make a certain weight class. So that's kind of my child. I feel like I was not born to be a wrestler, but I was bred to be a wrestler. And
Yeah.
it's really one of the only things that wrestling and racing are the two careers that I've been involved in. So I just and wrestling definitely takes the cake for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because everybody I talk to, fans, I don't think fully get it. They do, I think, now, but when you're talking about something like professional wrestling or live theater or something, where you have that reaction from the crowd, that live, whether you're working at a show of 50 with 50 fans or you're working a show like WrestleMania 3 with 93,000 plus. There's just something about when you're getting that response from the fans you're performing in front of. But you mentioned about cutting weight and all that stuff even at a young age. And you could say what you want about that, and you hear different things from parents, etc. And that mentality obviously has changed. You're a father of 4 kids. Would
Yep.
you have your kids do the same thing that you may have done for a sport like that, cutting of weight and just how things were done? Obviously, we're in a different stage of the world and do things differently.
That was in the 90s, and
Yeah.
things were a little different. And I'll tell you, I am 100 in support of all my kids, whatever they decide to do, whatever direction they want to go. I'll be on board 100%. I'm not gonna, and I wasn't pushed into wrestling. I'll say that. I was. It was definitely something that I gravitated towards. I was very good at it from the beginning. But I definitely want my kids to kind of find their own path. And if they want to become, I've got 3 boys and one little girl. If any of my boys want to become wrestlers, I will support that 1,000%, and we will get the ball rolling. And they're with the right guy. I know what to do. So we're there.
Well, with that being said, would you recommend amateur wrestling first before trying to pro style?
Absolutely. You need to have a grappling background. You should have some sort of jujitsu or martial arts or wrestling. And especially nowadays, you've got to come to the table with something special. You've got to come with a unique style, a unique character. Everything with all the different shows that they have going on, they've got to keep it entertaining. You've got to be able to bring it to the table for them. So I think having a wrestling background or some sort of uh, martial arts background will definitely give you a good foundation to start your professional wrestling career. I think it would be, there's a lot of guys that come from football and they'll come into wrestling.
Yeah.
The NXT has now they started doing it back in 2009 when I was down there, but they started picking up some of the NFL guys that maybe got cut from the practice squad or that were maybe changing direction and going into the wrestling world. Um, so I think, and those guys are just, they're going after the look. They're big, they're 7'1" or they're 6'8", and they've, you know, 300 pounds and they look jacked and there's a lot of different things that can land you a job at WWE. If you can talk on a mic, you can land yourself a job pretty good, pretty easy. And so they're just looking for that raw talent that they can mold into what they're looking for, and they've got a pretty clear plan in place, and they've got all the people in place, so they're doing a good job.
Right on. Now, obviously, I heard this elsewhere, but if you don't want to address it, that's fine. I heard that you grew up with a dyslexia. So
Yeah.
how did the athletics help you with dealing with a challenge like that?
With dyslexia, it was always a challenge for me in school, in the beginning, in my first few years of school up until about fourth grade. And I got a lot of uh, I was really good at wrestling, right? So I took that positive energy that I got from wrestling, and I filled myself with that. And luckily, when I in fourth grade, there's a school here in Charlotte called the Fletcher School, and it's a school for dyslexia, and they have between like 5 and 8 kids per teacher, which is amazing. I wish I could send my kids to a private school like that. But I went there from 4th grade until 7th, and then I went back into public schools, and it was a great experience going through that school, helping me. I just mixed up words when I read them. I still do, but it's something that I want everybody to I want to share with everyone, because nobody is perfect. Everybody has things going on, and the more that I can be honest with you, it may help someone else, and that's really what I'm into, and I'm grateful for all the fans, and that's why I'm doing this here with you. I love the fans and wrestling and sports cards, so I'm here to send my
Absolutely.
message.
Yeah, and that's why I like these long format conversations, because there's been times I would hear something, other people talking about something or whatever, how the case might be. And I always like to say there's little nuggets to your life, but there might be something there that you can go, you know what, I can use that and I could change your mentality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly, and that's definitely what I'm aiming for. I don't think you can save the world, but if you can help 1 or 2 people get through a hard time, man, that makes me feel good. So that's what I'm about. And my dad's the same way. Like, he always took the necessary time to spend time with each fan. The fans are so important to him, and he never wrestled for the money. He did all right. He had a couple obstacles in his way, because we own a little bit of a difficult point for him, because he's the only wrestler to ever own his own trademark. So uh, that was difficult at times, but he did exactly what he wanted to do. He wrestled for the fans, and he was able to have one of the greatest matches in wrestling history, WrestleMania 3. 93,173. It was just an incredible match, and really changed wrestling forever.
So you mentioned previously, and I appreciate that when I mentioned a little nugget and all that fun stuff and your take on that. But let's jump into the wrestling a little bit. So, you go through the amateur ranks and all that fun stuff. And was it true, probably about 17, 18 years old, that you said to your dad working out at the Y or something that, hey, I think I want to try this. I think I want to try what you did. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so I was playing football in high school, and I was a 4-year varsity starter, and I was a strong side linebacker. So I was having a lot of interest in colleges. I had a lot of interest from Clemson and NC State, Duke, probably about 30 different schools that were interested in pulling me up for D1 football. And I was at a point in my life where I wanted to, I'd always wanted to be a professional wrestler as a kid, and I knew that time was important and time was of the essence, and doing it young is the only way that you could really accomplish that goal. And yeah, I had to make a decision whether I was going to go play D1 football, or I was going to try my hand at wrestling. And these are conversations that I had just in my head. I didn't share these thoughts with my dad. I just kind of kept them to myself until I had made my mind up. And we were at the Y working out, and we are doing bench press, and I just, in between sets, we're just talking a little bit. And I said, I think I want to wrestle. And I said, what do you think? And he goes, well, that's up to you. You willing to put the time in to do that? And I said, what do you think? And he laughed, because he knows me, right? So he's like,
And
yeah,
the work ethic and all that. Yeah.
yeah. But I feel like he just said it because he felt like he had to say it. You know what I mean? Like, are you sure you
Yeah.
want to do this, right, Dad? And I was like, absolutely. So, and I'm just going to be fully transparent. And this is the way that it is in the business. He told me, he says, I can probably get you a contract and send you down to FCW, that's what NXT was at the time. It was FCW down in Tampa.
Steve Kern's school, correct?
Amazing Steve Kern. Not enough wonderful things to say about him and his family. Went to dinners and parties at his house. Just a great group of people. And I couldn't
I
have had
will
any.
mention if anybody has an opportunity, sorry, Richie, if anybody has an opportunity, check out Steve Kearney's books, Ian Douglas, all that fun stuff. Great reads. Go ahead, sir. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, absolutely. Check out those books. So it was just, going down there, and that experience was an opportunity. I looked at it as an opportunity, and I said to myself, well, if I go down to FCW, what are my peers going to think of me? This young guy coming in here, obviously he's Steamboat's kid. And I felt like that wasn't going to be the right approach for me. It's not who I am. It's not what I stand for. It's not the kind of things. Now, other guys, I'm not knocking anybody that did it, but I'm saying that personally, I wanted to earn the respect of the boys in the office. And in order to do that, you got to go old school. You got to do the tours. You got to run around. You got to do 200 or 300 matches a year, and you've got to do two-a-days. And my first match was in the rain outside behind a church, and I was getting booed by a bunch of little kids. I was in shorts and a t-shirt. So, and I started with George South. So I wanted to earn the boys' respect, and so I went on this journey, this 2-year journey of. I started in Charlotte, North Carolina, trained with George South at High Spots in
Love
Charlotte.
George. He's great.
Great, amazing guy. I can't say enough good things about him either. So, in my third match that I ever had, we were wrestling in the Mooresville Armory in front of 6 people and my dad. And George is, he's very respectful and an awesome dude. And he's like, listen, brother, your dad's out here. We got 6 guys and 6 people in the fans. We're going to go Broadway. We're going 60 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, oh, here we go. So he's trying to
And I
impress
could see George, would you say that I could just see George getting excited about, we're doing
like,
this,
this, and this. You just listen to me out there. We're going to be just fine, brother. Just don't worry about it.
But I could see him usually getting excited. Saying that.
Yeah. And he's he's wanting to impress my dad, and he says, we're going to go 60 minutes in front of 7 or 8 people. And hell, if we didn't do it, we definitely did it. So, and it was a great experience, going from wrestling, and that's what I wanted in my journey in wrestling, in my wrestling career, is I wanted to understand. I didn't want to go out and wrestle in front of 300 or 400 people that were just going to get excited because of my dad's legacy and what he created. I wanted to create my own legacy. So that experience, I trained there for 6 months here in Charlotte, and then I moved out to Eldon, Missouri, where Harley Race had his school, and loved it out there. I lived in public housing. Harley had a deal with the town. Somehow he got us these gigs, but he got us these apartments for $16 a month. I didn't have any money, right? My dad's not giving me money. I'm living off of the money I'm making, and I'm just trying to make it work. I got my TV on a box. My bed's on the floor. There's roaches everywhere. And it was, I look back and I was like, man, that's awesome. I had such a good time doing that. And got to meet the guys from Pro Wrestling Noah over in Japan. They flew over and they used to do some stuff with Harley and involved with them. And got to kind of show my skills. And by the time they were leaving, I think they were there for 7 or 8 days. By the time they were leaving, they had offered me a spot in their dojo, and I absolutely accepted. So, 2 months after I accepted, I left Eldon, Missouri. I flew home and got a few more things that I needed, and then I flew over to Japan and lived there for 6 months in Pro Wrestling Noah's dojo. And that was an experience.
Yeah. But yeah, you mentioned about going and training with both George and Harley, and talk about 2 different personalities. I can't say this for a fact, but just hearing and knowing the Harley stories that I do. Listen here, kid, as he's making those deals for you guys when he was setting up the school. This is what we need to do. Yeah, I could just see.
He had it.
And it'd be true.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it'd be he had 3 rings set up in his wrestling training school, and he had a round table, and he had chairs all around it, and he would sit at that table and watch us train, and he would just be, I mean, he'd probably smoke 2 packs of cigarettes in 3 hours.
Yeah.
And he would, I'd always go up to him, and I'd see him watching it. He'd usually stay relatively quiet unless he saw somebody doing something they shouldn't be doing, and then he'll speak up. Just kind of watching. He's, and I love how he does things, So it was
unless he saw something that shouldn't have been doing, you were saying.
Yeah, he unless he saw something that you shouldn't have been doing, I would always go to him after practice and I'd say, "Hey Harley, what can I do better? What can I improve on?" But he'd be like, "Look, you need to go out here and you need to do this. You need to make sure you give time, let it breathe." He would tell you all these different things, which were so important to wrestling, right? A lot of things that you need to learn as a young wrestler. You need to create good habits because it's really hard to break these old habits. So it was really cool. I mean, I remember riding with him. Reed Flair was coming out, and I rode with Harley to St. Louis to the airport, and man, he must have smoked. In an hour trip, he smoked a whole pack of cigarettes, and I'm trying to breathe out the window, sucking air. But he, it was.
Did he still have the heavy foot?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that never left. Yeah, he definitely had a heavy foot.
Now, and the one line, and you'll get this when I say this, not just Harley and George probably telling you, but if you think you're going too fast, slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Still go. And if you still think you're going too slow, go slower. Am I wrong with that?
No, that's spot on. Yeah, and he's like slow. He always would tell everybody slow down. You need to
like you were saying, letting it breathe and just the whole.
He would say that. My dad says that a lot too. Let it breathe. Let the crowd soak it in. Listen to what you're hearing. So it was getting that teaching at 19 years old was just it was an amazing. I'm lucky to have it. I'm grateful for that time, man. It was really cool. There's not a lot of these say that they were trained by Harley Race. So
yeah, and here's the thing too, especially with that older generation of guys trying to teach. And luckily you and me are about the same age, but you were at that stage, before, sadly, we started losing a lot of these guys. But like you said, it's amazing how many people could say they learned from Harley. And the only one that I can think of any notoriety is Trevor Murdoch.
Yeah. Yeah, and I spent a lot of time with Trevor when I was out in Eldon, and he was really cool. So there's a Harley, an amazing guy, a book of knowledge, man. So it was a good experience for sure.
Yeah. Now, what about working down in Puerto Rico with Carlos Colon, another generational family? So,
yeah, that was.
What would you say you would take out of that? Because again, Puerto Rico is a different style all on its own as well, compared to Japan and the guys you learned from as well.
Right, and that was the whole plan going into it. Is I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn like back when there were territories. All these guys would travel around and work and did whether they were going to Mexico or they're going over to Europe or Japan or the wrestling in Canada or the wrestling in the States. Everywhere you go, there's going to be a little variation of the style. There's going to be the luchador, the real fluid motion. You've got guys, acrobatics doing flips and moves and everything looks really smooth. And then you go over to Japan and you've got everybody's got a mouth guard in and you are just knocking the heck out of people. And you're just, it's just, you earn your respect. It's a totally different beast over there. Yeah. And so I wanted to take a little bit from each place I went to and try and incorporate that in my style. So wrestling down there, man, I had so much fun. I actually had a tag match with my dad and Orlando Colon and his brother. And it was amazing. Obviously I took the heat. We're sitting in the back and I said, I knew this was happening already. I was like, I'm just going to sit here. You just tell me what to do. And I was just barking out.
I'm a young buck here,
I'm having a match with not only my dad, right, but Ricky
Yeah.
Steamboat. And so it was just I'm so glad I got that experience, while and he lighting the place up. Dude hadn't wrestled in 15 years, 20 years.
Would this be around the time period, say, like WrestleMania 25, when he had that little comeback?
Yes. So that was came back from Japan. He got inducted in the Hall of Fame. Then WrestleMania happened, the next night, and then the Puerto
He
Rico
had
was,
that little run with Jericho.
yeah, that was in between that run. He flew down and had a match with me. But I was down there for several months.
Yeah.
Yeah, just staying. And I was with a wrestler named Damian Sandow. You remember? You know him?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he was he wasn't my roommate, but he was the guy in the room next to me. And yeah, just got to meet a lot of cool guys down there, and a different experience, different style. And that was what I was aiming for, was to learn a little bit from everybody and try and make that a kind of a unique style.
So when did you get the call from WWE and say, "Hey, we want you to FCW," and this is the time period where they're making a transition to NXT, Performance Center, all that stuff. So when did you get a call saying, "Hey, we'd like you to come in, check you out," and things progressed further?
I would say that was probably in like 2000 and 2009, and 2008, somewhere in that range. But I got a call from the office saying that they had some interest and they wanted to send me to Pittsburgh to kind of get a physical and get checked out and everything else. And I was excited. I was honestly itching for the phone call. I was ready to go. I felt like
Yeah.
I was ready, and it was good timing for me. It was a little bit before NXT started. NXT wasn't even really on the books that we knew of yet. It was still FCW for probably a year while I was there, and then they started. Then Triple H came down and discussed it with us, and explaining their kind of dwindling down the ECW brand and starting this NXT brand. And they already, when I went down there was already kind of a graduating class that had been there for a few years and that were
Yeah.
that were seasoned and they were ready to go on the road. And so I get that a question a lot, that, why wasn't I on the Nexus or the first NXT that went on TV on the road. And that was just rank and file. That was just the way that guys had been there longer than me. It was their turn to go up and do their thing. And Heath Slater, all those other guys that were in Nexus. And so I was happy for him, and it was a great time. I loved being down there. Had some awesome matches in FCW and NXT. So I hear this a lot. A lot of the great matches that you have are the ones that personally that a lot of the entertainers like, are the ones that aren't on TV. They're house shows.
Yeah.
Because we get to try new things. We get to try
A lot more freedom with what you're doing.
Yeah, and just see how the crowd is going to react and see, what's going to happen with that. So it was really cool.
Now, obviously, I know you were working with guys like Seth Rollins and some of the guys who you mentioned, Aaron Stevens, or Damian Sandow, as he was known up there, and things like that. So, is there a particular guy you appreciated working with, whether it was a Seth or an Aaron, or was it somebody completely that we wouldn't think of that you enjoyed working?
Yeah, it would be, I really enjoyed working with Seth. I really enjoyed working with Bray Windham.
Oh my God.
And it was out of all the guys down there, I probably liked working with those two the most. And I'll give you reasons for each. With Seth, it was because we trusted each other, and we could go out there and have a plan and just kind of go we could go balls to the wall. We could just anything we wanted to do. He knew where I was going. I knew where he was going. With Bray, just that natural heat that he got,
And the
and
psychology that he would do.
yeah, the psychology in his brain, the way that he thought through things, and the really creative things that he wanted to incorporate in our matches. I always knew that he was going to do really well in WWE just for that creative ability and being able to throw ideas. And that's part of it too. You need to be able to throw ideas at the office and call out your shots. So, working with those two guys, Seth and I, we traded the heavyweight title back and forth. We were tag team champions down there. We had a Jack Briscoe 15 title, which was the most pinfalls in 15 minutes. So it had a ton of matches, probably had the most matches with Seth out of anyone down there. And then Bray, we had some really cool stuff. We did like a Texas no holds bar bull rope match. We did a match where it was no rules, and we went out into the crowd, went outside. He ended up throwing me in the back of a pickup truck and driving off. Which was really cool. And we're, obviously it's the main event. It's the last show of the night. And I can't go back to the building, right? We can't just show up back at the building. So I had parked my car at Walmart, and we pull up to Walmart. I jump out of the back of his truck. Two sweaty guys in tights. We're hugging, and everybody's looking at us, and it was just funny.
Yeah.
But just looking back, man, I just, we were kids,
Yeah.
The way I look at it, man, it's just really good times. I miss them a lot. Yeah.
Would you say with Bray, and I can't believe I didn't think about this beforehand, but just that chemistry you guys had with the psychology and all that stuff, you think a lot of that had to do with both being generational talent, where there's something different you guys understand compared to, and I'm not knocking guys like Seth and any of those guys, who come in on their own. But you guys had something special being generational talent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to that for sure. You've got, Bray had Dusty in his ear, right? And I had my dad in my ear. So we basically got these Hall of Fame, one of a kind, incredible athletes that have been there and done it, and being able to bounce ideas off of, and I'm sure Bray did that with his dad, with Dusty, and obviously Cody did that, and having that knowledge. Hey, I don't like that at all. We're not going to do that. You should do this, right? And just kind of smoothing out the process. It definitely is an advantage for sure. Absolutely.
Now, obviously, I mentioned it at the jump because I asked you how you're feeling and everything. You obviously have the moonsault that was botched, which resulted in the back injury. I was asking how you're feeling and stuff. And kudos to you. And it's that old school mentality. You tried to push through it and all after feeling came back in a couple of weeks and stuff. But obviously, you end up leaving the company, released and all that. I know. Can you talk about, I should say I know, but could you talk about the mental health side of things? Because obviously, from what I read and understand, and rightfully so, it messed with you when you parted ways with the company. How did it affect your mental health, as you recovered and tried to figure out what worked for you physically?
Yeah, I think, wrestling had been my life since I was 5 years old. It had been something that I had, aspired to be, something that I had dreamed of my entire life. And, like you said, I had the injury. I was out for a few weeks and told him I was all good and got back in the ring. I really didn't want to lose my spot that I'd worked hard for, that spot. And I just, I kept pushing and pushing. And it got to the point I was having trouble picking up my little boy who was only 2 years old. And I was like, man, how the hell am I ever going to power slam, Drew McIntyre or Sheamus or one of these guys, right? How am I, or Batista, how am I ever going to do that if I can't? So I knew I had to kind of check myself and flew to Pittsburgh and had some some options to do. They had talked about doing a fusion, and I really wasn't keen on that. Being 24, they said I'd either not stand up straight or I'd have a hump on my back, and I just,
It didn't
I,
sit right with you, obviously.
I wasn't down with that. I'm not a baby. I'm used to dealing with pain, so it was something that unless I could guarantee it could get me back in the ring, and make my health better, in general, we really wasn't going to do it. But it was tough for me because I definitely, and it was on my own accord when I left WWE. They didn't release me. I had a couple options to go, the backstage route. I could have been an announcer or done other things with the company, maybe bled onto TV a little, not bled.
Yeah, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, no more bleeding. It's publicly traded company now. So
There was a story I heard about that with you that they
yeah,
weren't happy with bleeding, but
it was an accident. Shit happens. So what do you want to do?
yeah.
So it was just, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, okay, and I get that with the having to step away. Go ahead.
So after when I decided to come home, I really didn't want to be backstage because I wanted to be out there with my friends. I wanted to be out there wrestling. I didn't want to be commentary. I didn't want to do this, that. I felt I was just itching to kind of get out there and do it, and I wasn't able to. So I needed to take a break for myself. It was a tough decision to make, but overall, it was probably one of the better decisions I've ever made in my life.
Yeah.
Taking that time for my family, and really, I'd missed birthdays, and growing up, my dad missed birthdays. He missed holidays. He wasn't home very much. And I also wanted something different for my family. I wanted to be able to provide for them also, but also provide, be there for them.
Yeah.
So, it was a difficult time for me, but, like I said earlier, there's always going to be a speed bump in the road. Nothing is perfect. And it's how you pick yourself up. And it's you continue to pick yourself up and you keep pushing on, and not giving up. So it's, if I can just send out one message, to anybody out there, don't ever give up. Keep pushing. Don't ever let somebody tell you that you can't do it, because there'll be 100 people that tell you no before one person will tell you yes. And just keep that mindset and that mentality, and do good to others, and you'll be fine. So
2 more questions for you, sir, and I appreciate the time.
yeah, for sure.
With that being said, the time you could have transitioned to different roles and stuff within the company, but you said, I need to step away and obviously it was the right call for you at the time. The business has changed even so much from your time in ring.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider possibly a backstage role or announcing or anything like that if the opportunity arose now?
Yeah, I think I would. My kids are growing a little bit. They're getting a little bigger. I've got a 13-year-old, 8, 5, and a 3-year-old. So I think, I'm grateful for the time, and I'm glad I got the time to spend with them, as babies, and hang out with them and really embrace that. But part of my journey here is I got to get moving again. I want to do some things. I've had a lot of coals in the fire, and starting in January, we're going to be starting a YouTube channel, and it's going to be called Grown Up Wrestling. And we're going to be talking about all the ring worn gear, all sorts of cool stuff, sports card collecting, the hobby, where that's going. And, just felt like it was good timing to start. And here I am.
Which actually leads to my last question. And obviously, I've been noticing on social media and such. You into the collectibles, and you have a collectible business as well. So what led you down that alley? Was it something you liked as a kid, or what got us to where we are now? with that?
Yeah, definitely from a kid. I've always collected everything from gas and oil, vintage porcelain gas and oil signs from the 50s and 60s, Coca-Cola stuff, sports cards, memorabilia, signed photos. And I think obviously wrestling kind of gave me it was a opportunity for me to expand my collection because of all the connections that I have in the entertainment business. And so it's just something I naturally have always loved. When I was wrestling, I obviously had to kind of put that on the back burner, and then the family, and now I've got a little opportunity here, so we're gonna push forward. And I just want to be able to I love talking to fans at shows and showing off some really rare items, and learning about people. I want to create a business that people come back. I'm not trying to sell one item and make a killing. I want everybody to be happy, and come back and want to be trustworthy and be able to provide an excellent service and great stuff.
Which is a rarity in the collectible business. I'm a lifelong collector myself in the sports, and I'd love to get into the wrestling side of things collecting, but budgetary reasons is a big thing for me. But Richie, thank you so much for the time, and keep in touch with the YouTube channel and all that stuff.
Absolutely. And I'd like to say it to everybody, if you guys have a chance, give me a follow on Instagram, richie.steamboat. If you guys have any collectibles or any wrestling cards or any cards you're interested in selling, you can email me at steamboatcollectibles@gmail.com.
Well, here, let me show you this. Well, you'll appreciate this.
Yeah, let's see.
I just got to find it. And eventually I would like to have the old man sign it. And I say that respectfully, where is...
He is an old man. And I can say that.
Yeah, folks, that was all on Richie. But
yeah, me.
Yeah. Now I'm not gonna hell with it. I'll take the heat on it. Where is this? I know it's in this pile somewhere. You'll appreciate this. And I just recently found it. It's a WrestleMania 3 card with Dad and Randy on it.
Very cool. Very.
Let's see.
That's cool. Hey, can I? And I'm not trying. I want to share this with you. I think you'll really like this. So I have the same card.
Okay.
Right? And I have it. It's signed by Savage and my dad.
Oh.
On the same card.
Oh, look at that.
It just says Steamboat and it says Savage, and the reason for that is because that's how they referred to each other, and it was a personal that my mom had them sign, and check it. That's so cool.
That is, and obviously Randy's. What's that?
I said it's an iconic image. That was just an amazing match, and it's really cool.
Yeah, and I know your dad don't do many shows anymore, collectible shows. So I'll have to find a way to get that done. But what? Let me ask this, since we brought up that match with that card. Do you think that was his best match, or was it the stuff with Flair that was your dad's best stuff?
If you ask me, that I think that was. I think that match, and I think the Chi-Town Rumble were both his two best matches for different reasons. I think WrestleMania 3 was probably one of the best technically done matches, and something that had never done before that really changed the business. And I know how much Chi-Town Rumble and winning the World Heavyweight title meant to him. His answer would be with Flair. My answer is going to be the WrestleMania 3.
Let's move 148. Oh, wait, never mind. That's a whole nother conversation itself. Richie, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hey folks,
Looking for the ultimate destination for the nerd enthusiasts and collectors? Well, we found the spot for you. Nerds Nest Collectibles is a haven for nerds, geeks, and fans alike, as they have many different products and certainly more to come. Make sure you go ahead and visit them at nerdsnestcollectibles.com. Check them out.
Hey, it's Steve Off. You're listening to Crazy Train Radio, and that's the bottom line.